Episode 2. Hello, and welcome again to Pencil and Ink Reviews. I'm Giuseppe Toludo, and I'm joined by my co-hosts John Brewski and Tom Adonis. Our goal is to enlighten you on the exciting world of comic books and get you interested in reading along with us by listening to our reviews. So basically, we'll be summarizing each issue and giving listeners our insight and opinions on which books would be a good purchase and which ones they could probably pass on. Today we'll be discussing Uncanny X-Force, Thunderbolts, Cable and X-Force, and we'll start off with the Avengers.
So my next book on the review is Avengers, and it's written by Jonathan Hickman, and the art's done by Jerome Opeña, who's one of my favorite artists right now for Marvel. And Hickman is mine and John's probably one of our favorite writers right now working for Marvel. This guy did, if you guys don't know, if you're new to comics or Marvel Comics, Hickman did a run on Secret Avengers, which was a team put together by Nick Fury to battle one of the oldest terrorist groups in the Marvel history, which is called Hydra. And I don't know, he is like, this guy, and I feel bad. It's kind of like, I feel like I got stuck with Hickman, and he is the hardest guy to review because you never know what this, right, John? You never know what's coming with this guy. And he likes to jumble the story around and tell stuff in the future, in the past, in the present. He very lost, right?
For you George R.R. Martin fans out there and Game of Thrones series, you'd probably like Hickman a lot then.
yeah. Definitely my favorite writer, right? Like, this guy, you never know what's coming, and his stuff is always really intelligent and really well thought out. And I think he's, in my opinion, I think his run on Avengers will probably be better than Bendis's run, which is pretty amazing because Bendis is harder. But it's pretty great. So the story starts off. We get like a blank black panel. It says there was nothing, followed by everything, which is a burst of light, and then swirling, burning specks of creation circled the life-giving suns, which is looks like an interstellar outer space scene. And then erased to the light, it says, which is, it looks like a bright sun being birthed in the universe. And then we turn the page, and we get and this is something Hickman does with every book that he does. He always has like a very intricate symbol for all of his comics. And we get a and then a circle around it, and then very. How would you describe it, John? It's almost like a hydroglyphic sphere or something. Like, it's very. It's a cool symbol of the Avengers, Earth, and it says Earth Mightiest Heroes, which is cool. And then it starts off, we see Hyperion, which is this is, I mean, for this book, I really feel like it's really unfriendly to people who are new to Marvel Comics, because most people have no idea who Hyperion is. And Hyperion is a Superman-like hero from a alternate dimension, not the regular Marvel Universe dimension. And he was part of a team called Squadron Supreme, and he was the leader of that team. It was kind of like a Justice League, but for the Marvel Universe that didn't belong in the Marvel Universe. So they separated it. It was its own Earth, separate from any Marvel continuity. Well, basically, we find out that his world was dying, and someone rescued him from that world. I'm guessing it was Reed Richards. It looks like it was Reed Richards. And then we move on to the Shi'ar. We see them on a dead moon. We don't know if it's Earth's moon or another planet's moon, but they're battling some kind of unstoppable force, and they're being annihilated. It's not looking good for them. And then for those of you who don't know, Shi'ar are a bird-like alien race in the Marvel Universe. They've had really close ties with the X-Men, and they were the ones who decided that Jean Grey had to die when she was consumed by the Phoenix Force. So a lot of rich history there. Again, really unfriendly to new readers, but for those of you who have been reading Marvel Comics for a really long time, I think this is really good stuff. And then we move to Ex Nihilo, which I've never heard of this character. He's like a godlike character, and we see him, he's terraforming Mars. So he's on Mars, and he's creating vegetation and water and life on the planet, which is interesting. From there, we see that what he was doing on that planet was before some kind of large-scale Battlestar Galactica style interstellar space war. And it says this event that we're going to partake in or read is before the fall of what looks to be the Avengers, but all I see in this panel is Iron Man. Iron Men
Multiple
that have...
Iron Men.
Yeah, multiple Iron Men who have been completely annihilated, which is interesting. And then we move to the present where we see Tony Stark, and he's designing something with all of his high-tech, futuristic equipment and software. Really cool stuff. From here, we see that he has come up with sort of like a plan or an idea for if something horrific ever happened to Earth and the Avengers were unable to meet the call. So he's working on something, and then we see him, he wakes Steve Rogers up from a sleep, and he says he's been busy working on something, and Captain America actually thanks him for waking him up because he was having some kind of nightmare. And we see Reed Richards, Namor, Black Bolt, and T'Challa, the Black Panther, from his dream, I guess, staring at him. And the only thing that I can surmise from this is he's feeling guilty about that these other really important characters from the Marvel Universe were disapproving of. And so that was kind of cool. So we move on. Tony walks to Steve's room and wakes him up, telling him he's not able to sleep because of something he said. Steve tells him it's okay because he's having bad dreams. There's a panel with Reed Richards, Namor, Black Bolt, and the Black Panther staring at him angrily, which may be foreshadowing for something big down the line. Tony talks to Steve about how the world has become ever more dangerous and that their enemies seemingly are endless. He asks Steve if he remembers what he said. Steve says that we had to get bigger, as in the Avengers had to get larger. Okay, so we moved on to 1 month later, where we see Ex Nihilo. He's continuing his work on terraforming Mars. Here we see him being accompanied by a robot assistant, and they're having a philosophical discussion about creation. Nihilo says that he wonders if this is what it felt like when the goddess of creation was creating Earth or any other planet. And the robot corrects him and says there's no such thing as a deity or God, that he's just recoding biology, and that he's ignoring his responsibility of their main objective, which is destroying Earth, and that it's a time-sensitive mission. So that's basically what I got from the opening. And then we see that Ex Nihilo is trying to recreate humanity in his own vision, perfecting the human genome, I guess, or the human being for Mars, I guess, and for Earth eventually, which he plans to just completely destroy and recreate in his own image. So he's a very godlike character. Then we see Suddenly, a dark figure appears near a pool of water near Ex Nihilo and the robot. She tells Nihilo that he is wasting his time and that the robot has marked the world for destruction and that the Eye of Aleph cannot be averted. Later, we find out the Eye of Aleph or Aleph is the robot, I believe. Again, it's tough. This is a really tough comic to kind of understand. Again, Hickman really is kind of mysterious and kind of leaves things to.
Complex.
Well, he kind of just leaves. He's kind of leaving a lot of open-ended. He's always trying to make you think. I feel like, and we really don't know what's going to happen just yet. Basically, we see that the Avengers have found out about what he's doing. It's the classic Avengers team. We see Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, the Black Widow, Bruce Banner, and Hawkeye. And they're on a spaceship and they're headed towards Mars. They land. We find out that Ex Nihilo has launched some missiles at Earth, which has exploded on the surface, and I'm guessing in its vicinity of the area of the explosion has reconstructed the DNA or the biological molecular makeup of everything that's biological on our planet in those areas, and it's wiped out like thousands of people. So that's what caused the Avengers to come towards Mars and face this guy. So they come at this guy, Ex Nihilo guy, and they are just absolutely not prepared. They get defeated. They really stand no chance. Abyss turns the Hulk against Thor. The rest of the Avengers go down pretty quickly. Cap is the last one remaining. He goes up against this Aleph robot creature thing. He's put down really quickly and is injured pretty badly. And then Ex Nihilo puts him on a spaceship and sends him back to Earth as a warning to humanity that they can't be stopped and that their best heroes couldn't avert their fate. So what we find out towards the end of the book is that Tony had a plan because of what Captain America, Steve Rogers, had said to him that one day something like this is going to come where we won't be able to stop the bad guys. Like there will be a big enough, bad enough bad guy with a plan that we're not prepared for, and then we'll need a backup plan. And we find out that Tony came up with like a reserve team of characters, and we see a lot of we see Hyperion, we see a couple of X-Men, I see Cannonball and Sunspot on this last page, Wolverine. It looks like the son of the teleporter guy from X-Men. Joe, help me out here.
Gateway?
Gateway, yeah. I think it's the son of Gateway. So, I mean, we get some interesting characters here. That's supposed to Spider-Man and Spider-Woman and Miss Marvel and some other people. So this is supposed to be the reserve team that answers the call to face off against this evil force, and that's kind of where the comic lets us off. Overall, I think this is a really, really unfriendly comic to new comic book readers, but to old comic book readers like myself, this is comic book gold, and I can't wait to see where this goes. It's a little bit confusing. That's kind of how Hickman works, and it kind of pays off later. So,
yeah, it was definitely confusing for me in certain parts, but it's kind of interesting that now they're everyone's in agreement. Well, I guess they kind of were, like the whole Illuminati storyline where they're like, we need to all get together and make plans. Like, this is kind of like a reimagining of some sorts of what they originally, like the beginning of this whole storyline, like with them wanting to, before the Civil War and everything, where we need to unite everybody to be able to defeat villains that we couldn't do on our own. So that's kind of interesting to me that they're kind of like bringing that back a little bit. And it's more acceptable now because of everything that they've gone through. And it's kind of like, well, you know what? I think we were right in the beginning, and now that we've learned our lesson, kind of. This seems like the thing to do, but I mean,
Yeah,
who knows? Who knows where they're gonna take it though? So
we kind of see that in New Avengers too. I'll get to that later, but yeah.
One thing coming into just the Avengers book, I was never an Avengers reader. I collected a lot of these characters' books separately, or if there was a big story arc, I would pick them up. However, with this book, I found myself confused. I had no clue about who this alien guy was that turned Mars into a green planet, or what the whole idea was with, the old Iron Man costumes and whatnot. Though it did pique my interest. I was interested to see, and I was hoping with your interview you could tell more about it, but obviously it even got you a little scatterbrained on it, and I guess we will wait and see as future books unfold what this is all about. One of my favorite parts from the book that just had me cracking up was the robot says the apes are intruding, or they're incoming, apes incoming. And as soon as I turn the page, they plan this perfectly. I turn the page, and the first thing that I see, I don't look left to right. I turn the page, and the first page that I see is to the right, is a picture of the Incredible Hulk drawn so closely to resemble an ape.
Yeah, he does. He does look like a lot like an ape. Yeah.
Like they totally. I had to say they must have did that on purpose, but man, I was cracking up on that. Like incoming apes, and then I turn the page, and Incredible Hulk. He's almost got like the brow going in the jawline. Oh man, it was so
and
cool.
again, it seemed like they were worried about the Hulk because they figured out a way to get in his brain and turn him against the team. You know what I mean? Like,
Poor Hulk, man, he's always getting the short end of the stick.
But yeah, the idea that the Avengers couldn't be prepared for everything. This is an idea that they've been kind of touching on for a while. In the Marvel Universe, I think, for the past 6 or so years. So it's nice for it to kind of come to fruition now, and I think this is obviously a very godlike character, Ex Nihilo, and he's going to be a pretty difficult villain to defeat. And I think his associates Abyss and this robot are pretty tough. So it should be cool, and I think we're going to get to see a lot of character development for the non-main Avengers. Like the main Avenger squad has been completely incapacitated. A lot like it reminded me a lot of like X-Men. When they first did the all different X-Men back in the late 70s, when the original X-Men team was stuck on that island, and they were the island was alive, and it was like absorbing their energy, and Scott was the only one that made it out alive, and that's why Professor X had to go and recruit Storm and Wolverine and Nightcrawler, and the X-Men, the X-Men team that most of us who are X-Men fanatics about know and love. So this story reminded me a lot when I see I see Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, or not Scarlet Witch, the Black Widow and Iron Man and the Hulk all kind of like incapacitated and kind of restrained by this supervillain. It kind of reminded me of that X-Men story. So I think we're going to see a lot of good character development for these less prominent Avenger characters, which I'm kind of excited about.
Another thing I want to know, maybe I'm just not used to this just because the movies are so popular now. I'm still like getting used to the fact that they're incorporating a lot of stuff from the movies into the books. Like, Cap, the second to last page, his costume is like almost identical to the Avengers movie costume and stuff. It's not really pertaining to the story of this issue, but yeah, I don't know. It's crazy seeing all the new, not reimaginings, but the stuff that's going on in the movies is really getting incorporated a lot into these books, which is kind of cool. That is what's going to anchor people who are just movie fans into these books, I think. Partially, not entirely. This is a bad example of an issue. I think anybody that goes to see the Avengers movie and then picks this up is going to be like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah, but I mean, this is Hickman laying down the groundwork for an epic.
Right. And I mean, it looks interesting. I mean, this is definitely a buy for me. I was a bit confused, but sometimes you gotta be confused, and then as it goes, it all gets explained. So.
And that's very much Hickman, right, John? Like, did you in the beginning of Secret Warriors? Did you know anything that was going on?
No, not really.
Yeah, exactly.
you sat there and just wondered, like, okay, we know Nick Fury is going from his secret base to secret base, but yeah, you really are like, okay, we'll just sit back and actually, Secret Warriors is to this day one of my favorite stories at all. I mean, just everything about it I thought was amazing.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be exactly the same way. I think 6 issues into this comic, we're going to be really into it and having a lot of questions as always. And I think by the end, when he wraps this thing up, we're going to be like, he does wrap things up very well. That's one thing I can say about Hickman. He'll have you asking a million questions, and then by the time the comic wraps up, you'll be like, wow, he did an amazing job. All my questions were answered. I have nothing but good expectations for this comic.
Yeah, not to get back, but yeah, Secret Warriors, man. I mean, you have two great writers there, Brian Michael Bendis and Jonathan Hickman. Pick that up. Couldn't recommend it enough.
Yeah, that would be a good one to pick up in trades.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd have to check that out. I didn't read any of the Secret Avengers stuff.
It's Secret Warriors. Secret Avengers.
It's totally.
That's another book.
Totally
by
its own thing.
And that kind of spawned out of what?
That happened during Osborn's Dark Reign.
Yeah, one of the big events, right? Like right after the
Secret Invasion.
Yeah, Secret Invasion.
Yeah, because Nick Fury got what? He got kicked out, and then
he got ousted out of head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Osborn got put
Osborn took over. Yeah,
fucking Osborn.
I love Osborn. Is a great villain, and
that was a great run right there too.
That was
Dark Reign.
I've never bought more Marvel comics than during Dark Reign.
Yeah, I think honestly that was where my extent went. I mean, when I first got back into it, and Tommy told me these weren't the comics from the 90s.
Yeah.
I was picking up whatever I could, but it was all cheap stuff. But then Dark Reign came out, and I picked up a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right when I kind of got kicked back into reading again. That's when I started working at the comic book store. And I picked up quite a few issues here and there of different books, but I never really got the whole story arc. I'm gonna be reading that pretty soon here.
It's tough. Dark Reign was kind of like a broad brand name for all the comics. It was like every comic Marvel was putting out had the Dark Reign title, and you didn't have to necessarily pick up everything that they were putting out.
Right.
But if you were a reader that was already reading lots of Marvel comics, it kind of just sucked you into the universe even more.
Right.
And it got me. I think I was buying about 15 Marvel comics at the time, a month, maybe 12, at the least. I'm thinking back now. And then it went up to like 30.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. I've never bought that many comics in my life, so it was crazy. I'm not buying that many anymore. I'm back down to about 15 to 18. But
still,
it was it really that storyline really pulled me in.
Well, it did. That came at a time where I'd talk to Tommy and be like, "Hey, did you read this issue?" And he'd be like, no, I'll go pick it up. And he'd be like, did you read this? And I'd be like, no, I'll go pick it up. And it truly was like, whoa. But, well, Joe, do you want to
Yeah.
go next? And
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think I'm gonna go with Uncanny X-Force. I wasn't reading. Again for viewers listening, I've been on and off with comic books for years. Sometimes longer than I would have liked to, but it's not a very cheap hobby. So
no, it's expensive,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get into that a little later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But so for me, this is all really new. I've been reading a lot of, like, right now I'm up to like 1990 in the X books, and I've read stuff, more current stuff here and there, but nothing consistently. So I'm kind of all over the board. I don't really know the history before this book too much, but basically, so Uncanny X-Force, written by Sam Humphries, art by Ron Garney. So the issue starts off, the first page is kind of a look at what's going to happen later on with Psylocke and, what's her name? Forearms there.
Oh, you're talking about
Spiral.
Spiral, yeah.
Spiral.
So anyways, after that little page, it starts off with Storm and Psylocke, and they're just kind of getting together, talking about where Betsy's been for like the last 6 months, and she's just kind of recounting her story to Storm about her whole thing at the Jean Grey school and supposedly assaulting a student or certain students. I don't know that storyline, but that's what she's kind of telling her. And basically Logan explains he can't have ties with X-Force, so she kind of has to go. He's not saying, anything more than that. Basically, he couldn't say it out loud, but he has a mission for her, and basically it's a reason to get her away from the school, to keep their association to a minimum. So meanwhile, we cut over to the two of them, Storm and Psylocke, looking for their contact, who is Puck. Puck, I'm not familiar with. What books was he in?
Puck is
Alpha Flight.
Puck is an old school, late 1970s John Byrne character. John Byrne was the guy that designed a lot of the new X-Men characters like Storm and Nightcrawler and Colossus and them. Puck belonged to Alpha Flight, which was the team that Wolverine belonged to before
the
X-Men.
Canadian,
Right, the Canadian team.
Yep. And as he likes to reference himself, he's the Saskatchewan sweetie.
He's a ladies' man.
Yeah, he's a ladies' man. Little short ladies' man.
I thought he was gonna nuzzle himself right into Psylocke's vagina there for a minute. So
yeah.
What page was that on, John? That was
Jeez, man, I don't have the book right with me.
I think that was on page 8. Yeah.
It was pretty early on, man.
He's talking about how her legs are as tall as his head or something. So.
Yeah, and we found out that Puck is a leg man.
Oh yeah. So from there, he takes him to this, like, I guess, exclusive nightclub. I was under the impression that Spiral's running that nightclub.
Yeah, it's like her. She's basically the. I don't know. She's like the main event to the entertainment.
Okay.
Yeah, she is, and she's from the Mojo verse, where they're all about the entertainment.
Oh yeah, that's their thing, man.
Right, get those ratings.
Right.
Across the
Mojo.
dimensions.
I can't wait till the day we talk about Mojo, but we'll save that for another time.
That fat bastard.
Right. So it's here that they're looking for information on this new drug called TAO or Tau, or I don't know how they say it, and hoping to shut down its operation. And it's a drug that's supposed to give you a sense of unity and togetherness with other people who are on it.
Yeah, it seemed to me like it was like ecstasy with
but
some
like
kind
a telekinetic ecstasy.
unison. Yeah, like
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
like united
Uh,
you with all the people around you.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting. But unfortunately, it makes you susceptible to like this hive mind mentality.
Mind control.
Right. But like they're all like sing the same thing basically, or
right.
something like
Yeah.
that.
That's exactly perfect. It is a hive mind. Like all
Right.
of them are like, oh, we must do this.
Right. And so they're walking into the club and just kind of scoping it out, seeing what's what, and Betsy right off the bat sees Spiral, and they have bad history. I'm assuming, because like first thing she does is just jump with her sword and goes to like kill her basically or attack her. And
Well, I think that all has to do with back in the '90s, right when she got turned into she used to be an English white woman and she got turned into an Asian.
right,
Yeah, and I think that all has to do with the Mojo verse and the and Spiral and the Mandarin, which I think by that time, and we'll get to it when we do our retro reviews, but
yeah,
I think Claremont was burnt out, and he was. I still, I mean, I just recently read that about a year and a half ago or a year ago,
mm-hmm.
and I still can't make that much sense of it. Like it was very hard for me to understand, and
That's what I'm reading right now. I totally sympathize. I know what you mean.
it's hard. I don't know what they did for her to get her mind into that Asian woman's body, or if they just changed her face. Like I don't know what happened. Like to me to this day it's very confusing. I remember talking to my friend Wes, who got me into comics a long time ago, and he was very confused by it, and he thought it had something to do when they went through the Siege Perilous and all that stuff, but it's just a very confusing thing. So I'm wondering if Sam Humphries, who's the author, is going to try to
Kind of explain a little bit.
yeah, kind of revisit that and fix it. Which
Right.
I feel, and you guys didn't read Uncanny X-Force before this, but they did basically what Uncanny X-Force was about was basically Archangel. Like they took the Archangel character and wrote, and it was written by Rick Remender, and he wrote a fantastic story to kind of complete the whole Archangel storyline that was started way back in the early '90s by Chris Claremont and Louise Simonson, and I think he really wrapped it up really nicely, and we have Archangel or Angel now in a very like pure, innocent, almost like he was kind of his whole memory was wiped. He's like a completely new human being.
So,
Right here.
as Betsy and Spiral are duking it out, Storm and Puck are using that distraction to go find the source of this drug or what have you, and so I take it they head down to the basement of this club and they find this vault, and Storm uses her powers to basically rattle the vault loose, and they open it up and they discover this young girl who's actually behind the source of the Mind Hive syndrome. And she sends out a distress call to all the junkies upstairs to stop Psylocke from killing Spiral. And that's basically where that ends. They kind of cut off on a cliffhanger. They got Psylocke all they grab her up, and like the last thing you see of her is they got a sword like ready to slice right into her head. And then they cut to downtown Los Angeles, and where we see Bishop has made it back to our present time, wherever he was. I don't even know.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. He screams, "I'm back!" So he's pretty happy that he's back.
Yeah, he is.
And from there, he's just on the one page that just show him pop up, and then we cut to Paris, France. These are characters I'm not familiar with. His name is Phantom X.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
And,
Phantom X.
and I guess he has some like twin replicants of himself
Well,
or something.
you guys really need to read Uncanny X-Force, but what happened was this was a mutant with 3 brains, and they separated all 3 of his brains into separate bodies because I can't remember why. I think because he almost died, and it was all this crazy stuff. So basically, he's making out with his own self.
Well, yeah, we get to
Or
that.
with yeah.
You ruined it. No.
Yeah.
So they're running from the law. They're thieving or what have you, and like the last page is them. He says you're perfect, and they just start making out, and that was kind of creepy.
That was extremely.
That was like an awkward pause. I was like, what?
Yeah. Phantom X is a really great character, and Rick Remender did a really good job with him. But I don't know what Sam Humphries is going to do with him.
Yeah.
But you guys really got to read Uncanny X-Force. But good stuff. A Bishop hasn't been seen since the Cable and Hope run, when he was protecting Cable, or where he was protecting Hope. Cable was protecting Hope. They left him in the future, stranded. His time machine wasn't working anymore, and somehow now he's made it back to the present. So it'll be interesting because he's been a villain for a while, which is great. I really think Bishop is great when it's about his origin, or where he came from, the future he came from, which is a dystopian future where mutants are in concentration camps. He is come back from the future and trying to stop that reality from happening. And I don't know if he's been successful. He hasn't been successful. He was trying to kill Hope when she was a baby, which was pretty heinous. I mean, we're talking about a character that had been a good guy for a really long time, and he was trying to kill a baby. So a lot of X-Men fans were really upset about this, but I thought it really made Bishop interesting again, because Bishop hadn't been interesting to me since he first came on the scene back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Where we didn't really know if he was a good guy or a bad guy. He was from the future. We didn't know what he was, what his end goal was. And then we find out all this. I mean, of course, this is a different writer. It's not Chris Claremont. It's not John Byrne. It's just, I don't remember who the writer was at the time. I think it might have been Matt Fraction. But, they turned Bishop into this bad guy. They made it out to be that all this time he's just been waiting for Hope to be born, and that he wanted to kill her to prevent her from becoming the Messiah, or the person that would rekindle the mutant genome and restart mutation in human society and recreate the mutant race. And why he wanted to stop that was he thought if he stopped Hope from doing that the mutant race wouldn't exist, and then all that suffering wouldn't have to happen from his time, where everyone was in concentration camps, people were being killed by sentinels, and
So for his mindset, I mean, it was justified. It wasn't like he was
totally.
It wasn't like he was just out to kill her.
Kill her. If I was Bishop, I would totally do the same thing. Why would you want to subject the world to that?
Right.
So this shitty world where these giant fucking sentinel robots are flying around, murdering people.
Right.
Because they're different. Why would you want that? If you could make the mutant race go extinct and make everyone be human and normal, why wouldn't you want that?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that he's right. I'm just saying I can totally understand his viewpoint.
Definitely.
And it was good. I thought it was a really good story. So
yeah, for me it was a pretty good issue. I mean, I didn't really have much expectations for it just because I haven't been following. But yeah, I mean, it was good. Wasn't my favorite, but
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite either. And this is I gotta be honest. This is an empty shell of what Uncanny X-Force was under Rick Remender and Jerome Opeña, who's working with Hickman on Avengers. It's just not. It's good. It's decent. You know, is it worth $3.99? No, I think it should be priced at $3 at $2.99.
Right.
I think it's overpriced. But maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it will get better.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
It was all right. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
So
I feel like this is just a book to put out there to get more money.
Yeah, it's filler.
You know,
Well,
I mean,
honestly, I don't know. We don't know that yet, John. It's only the first issue.
Well, that's just our first
But-
impression.
right, but exactly. You have all these great books that we've already discussed, and then you have this, and it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but how many people are going to want to buy an Uncanny X-Force book where it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, we'll throw Storm in there because people like Storm, and we'll throw Psylocke in there because, well, she was part of the original team, and you know, let's talk about Phantom X a little bit because, you know, he's the Frenchman's Deadpool. So, you know, I mean,
Here's my worry. I think I don't know, but I think they're going to ruin Storm.
yeah,
So Uncanny X-Force was a team created by Archangel and Wolverine, Logan, as a hit squad. They murdered people in cold blood. Bad people. The people that, you know, the X-Men would let live, or like the Avengers would just lock up at Rikers. They just fucking went all out and assassinated these people.
Mm-hmm.
They just took them out. That's what made the book awesome. That's what made the book different.
right.
When I look at this team, everybody fits except Storm. Storm does not kill.
Exactly.
Storm has never killed.
She was a big opponent against Cyclops when she found out that he was given the authority to
Go out and kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was when Kyle Yost or Kyle and Yost used to write that book. Yeah, exactly. And like, I get it. Okay, she's just been through a divorce with the Black Panther, T'Challa, and all that. But
Yeah.
and she's sporting the mohawk, in which that's the edgy Storm. We all know that from the 80s.
Punk rock.
Yeah,
We all know that from the Mohawk.
Yeah, when she sports the mohawk, it means she's been through a traumatic experience in her life, and
Right.
she's going through some stuff. And I wonder if they're gonna make her kill people in this book, and that really,
I know.
no. I mean, but that's what this book has been about, John.
Right.
Two volumes.
And that's why I'm saying
Some-
that I think I don't think it will do well, because if you have Storm doesn't do this, you know, you don't have any real considered build up for the reason why Storm would end up being like, yeah, okay, let's kill people. You know, I think this book's going to be a watered down version of Uncanny X-Force. It's just going to be an unnecessary book. Like, hey, we have all these X-Men characters that we're not using that people really liked. Let's put them in this book, and then, you know, hopefully sales rise. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed reading it. I just, you know, I would rather spend my money, you know, my $4 on another book.
Right.
I totally agree. This book is overpriced. The only thing that could save it is Bishop. I think if Sam Humphries has a really great story to tell with Bishop, I think this book can be saved. Otherwise, this book is weird. I mean, Puck.
Right.
You
know, I mean, you have to hit the really niche, like, guys, like, oh my gosh, Puck from Alpha Flight, I love this book. I mean, okay, I really giggled a lot when I saw Puck in there, and it really
That's
made
Saskatchewan
like,
sweetie, man. I mean,
I know exactly. I mean, it totally, for me, I was like, oh yeah, Puck, but I don't know too many other people that are going to be like, what's this dwarf doing, you know, like.
That was like me, because I didn't know who he was. I'm like,
right,
what the hell?
yeah.
Who's the Saskatchewan sweetie?
and like, and Spiral has always been a villain.
Right.
And she's being shown on the cover as part of this team, which is interesting.
Oh yeah.
but
True, yeah.
I don't know where they're going with it. You
Yeah.
know, and
We'll see.
and yeah, I mean, I'm curious. I will continue to buy this book and spend money on it. Actually, hard-earned money that I make from my job to buy the physical comic. But you know, we'll see. We'll see in 3 or 4 issues how I feel about it. You know, I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm at too. It's on my poll. Who knows how long it's gonna stay there? I'll give it another issue or two, and if I'm not impressed, that's gonna be a pass. But for now, we're in the green.
It could end up being awesome.
It could.
We have no idea right now.
That's true. I
And
mean, it's still in its infancy.
that's the tough thing about comics, and I think that's what's something that makes it difficult to get into comics is that it takes time, and it takes it takes $4 per issue to get into a story.
Yeah.
So it makes
It
it
just reminded me of a George Harrison song.
what song is
It
that?
takes time and takes money. I got my mind set on you. You know.
Joe.
So-
That's how you should end the song. I mean, and that's how you should end the show. Okay.
Yeah, until we get the state of George Harrison coming knocking on our doors, like,
Yeah.
oh, we would really
Hey.
like a royalty.
Hey, what's the
or
worst?
paid.
What's the worst they can do? They can sue us.
Yeah, they could sue us for everything that we're worth. Yeah.
Which is
Which isn't much, you know.
which
I
isn't
mean,
much, right?
Right.
let me
Garnish-
give you. I'll give
garnish-
you my comic book collection.
Right.
That's what you're gonna get.
Garnish your check for the next 20 years. Anyhow.
All right, let's move on. I am gonna move on to Thunderbolts next. You know, I wasn't picking up this book first. I was just letting it sit by the side. You know, I felt that it was one of those. Once again, it was a great book under the Dark Reign run, and now I just felt like they put this team together to just try to make money off another book. You have the Punisher, Elektra, Deadpool, Venom, and Red Hulk.
Which sounds
And
awesome.
Well, that's their whole thing. Like you're just like, oh, all your favorite, wacky zany characters all in one book.
Ah!
And so you're like, oh, okay, So I read reviews. I heard a lot of people are like, nah, I don't like it. But I decided, hey, I'll pick it up. I'll read it. This first issue alone, Daniel Way writes it, and Steve Dillon is the artist. Dillon has done a lot of Punisher stuff with like Garth Ennis, actually. Man, I really like his art a lot.
Yeah, the art's cool.
It's gritty.
It's different. It's not so much realistic as it is just his own concept.
It's gritty and ugly, and I love it.
It's ugly.
The coloring's
Exactly.
really nice too.
Every
And the
fucking
coloring.
person in this comic looks ugly.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
like
love it.
all the
And I
dudes
love
look like a bag of garbage. And I love how he draws Frank Castle because like here's a dude since Vietnam who's just gone haywire, and it's
Yeah.
like, this guy is not gonna look pretty, and oh my gosh, he just, but anyway, so we open up, and it's Frank bound with some
Change.
Chains or
chains,
something.
yeah, and you're like, okay, well he looks a little beaten up. What's going on, And then there's someone talking in the background off book. You don't know who it is. And so then it cuts to Venom in Somalia killing people out of nowhere.
Really?
And then you see that he's talking to General Thaddeus Ross. And for those that don't know, that's the Red Hulk.
Let's talk about old Hulk, John. Thaddeus Ross was the general that was after the Hulk for years, right? I mean, Bruce Banner dated his daughter. He was there when Bruce Banner was exposed to the gamma radiation that turned him into the Hulk. So he felt responsible in trying to bring him in, and now he's been turned into a Hulk himself.
Right.
which
and that even that in its own storyline, people are kind of like, all right, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, hey, people. So there's some people out there that really like the Red Hulk.
it sold enough for them to sell a good amount of the comics to keep that. They kept that book running for a while.
Yeah,
Like,
they did. They did.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I wish there was just one Hulk. I don't
Yeah.
think there should be a She-Hulk. I don't think there should be a red She-Hulk or a red Hulk. One Hulk is enough. I don't think you need multiple Hulks. That's my opinion.
But anyway, Venom, is talking to him, and you see that Ross is trying to recruit. And then it cuts back to Ross talking with the Punisher, and you still kind of have no clue what's going on. And he's threatening him and saying, there's 400 guys waiting outside to kill you and whatnot. And then it cuts again. Next, it's Deadpool in France, and Deadpool is killing a bunch of mimes. And it unravels even more. Why the hell would Thaddeus Ross talk to Deadpool? And then he finds out, that Deadpool volunteered and for the Weapon X program, and he Ross is looking for someone who volunteered for something, like this, what he wants to do. Okay,
Ross is basically putting together a hit squad to take out the worst of the worst. Kind of like Uncanny X-Force was before Sam Humphries,
Right. And so then it goes back to Frank. Then they're talking again, trying to negotiate. Then it goes to Afghanistan, and he's talking to these two bodyguards, and they're like, "You don't have a meeting with the Sheik, blah blah blah." And he's like, "No, I don't." And then all of a sudden, you see two what's the name of
bodyguards?
No, not the body.
The things, yeah.
Raphael's weapons.
Size.
Thank you. Size. You see two Size go through the door, like one through the one guy's neck, the other through like his head, and then it pulls back, and then she's standing there, and you see the bloody background of everyone that was in the office, like dead.
I like
Frank.
the guy sprawled on the table and his stomach is just gutted open.
Yeah,
his pants are down.
His pants are down, so you knew what he was trying to do. That's why I love Dylan, because man, like it's a gritty world, and he doesn't try to hide anything. Like, of course, what's this guy gonna do when he sees this hot chick in his room, and he's thinking he's Macho Man, and then all of a sudden,
the guards made it sound like it was like he was ordering a prostitute.
Right, exactly.
Which was Elektra, but she was really there to assassinate it.
Oh yeah,
that was funny. I like that.
And then it cuts back again to Frank, and we find out a little bit more that the FBI had been collecting so much information on Frank Castle, and they wanted to give it to Ross so that they could help the FBI take out Frank Castle. And Ross is just like, haha, we lied. And,
yeah, I loved how Ross was like, yeah, we've been analyzing all this data on you, so we could improve the FBI's tactics.
He's just like, no, screw them, no thanks.
But he was like faking the Punisher for saving tons of FBI agents' lives.
Well, yeah,
because
exactly.
They learned so much of his hit squad mentality on taking out the mob. Which was
right.
I thought awesome.
And that's what he says too. He's like, you saved a lot of good men and you killed a lot of bad men. And he leaves it at that. And so then the chains come off, and Ross tells Castle how he can escape out of here. It doesn't have to face the 400 dudes. And Castle's like looking at him like, yeah, right, okay, whatever. And so like Ross is like, you're not serious, right? And he has two Uzis or whatnot. That's it. And then he's just like, I got my weapon with me. And then you turn the next page, and Ross is the Red Hulk, and they are just killing, slaughtering them, these mobs, and it ends right there. So, I have to say that I don't know, since it's on 5 or 6 issues already, and that was only issue 1. I am very interested to see where this book goes.
Yeah.
That first opener was enough to get me, hooked. And I think, if you're a new reader and you're not looking for a PG era book, this is definitely the book for you.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with this book. It's okay. I'm interested, right? And at $2.99, it's a lot. It's cheaper than I guess a premium, quote unquote premium book, with a big name author. Daniel Way is a good writer. The art is good. Steve Dillon, I like. I dig it. It's rough. It's gritty. It's cool. My whole thing with this book is it didn't feel very organic. Like the team coming together didn't feel organic. Do you get what I'm saying? Like Uncanny X-Force, if the team is what we see on the cover, Storm, Puck, Psylocke, Phantom X's other brain female counterpart, Spiral and Bishop, right?
Yeah.
In the first issue, there is no team, right? We have Psylocke, Puck, and Storm working together. The rest are not, right? The rest are kind of
scattered out.
They're there, right?
We're taking a peek into what they're up to while these three are working together. But if this is the team, then I'm guessing that the team is going to come together over a period of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 issues, which is a very organic way of a team coming together, which I like. This team in Thunderbolts is very force-fed, right? It's Thaddeus is going around, he's recruiting these vigilante mercenaries,
right?
Basically, right? And the team and like you were saying, the team feels very forced, right?
Right.
So that's what puts me off here.
Well,
other than that, this is a pretty decent book, I think. I think
I said,
it has potential.
I feel this is just a book that they created to make extra income. Anytime you put Punisher team up with anyone, you're just kind of like, does that really happen? Does it ever really work? The one thing I like with what's going on in Punisher Warzone right now is, the Avengers are going after Frank Castle, and Spider-Man absolutely hates Frank Castle.
Of course he does.
Just hates him, and I love that. And I love that it's pretty much been like that since when Frank tried to kill him back in the 70s.
He's the antithesis of Spider-Man.
Exactly.
But I want to know, is Spider-Man in Warzone Peter Parker, or is he Otto Octavius?
Peter Parker.
Okay. It'll be interesting. Yeah, and I don't know how Warzone is going to end, but it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic changes if Otto Octavius stays as Spider-Man. That would be cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But this is it's a gimme read. It's if you have the extra money to spend and you don't want to think too much, this is a good book. It's a funny book. I don't think too much of it. I like I said, anytime the Punisher teams up with anyone that's not Microchip, I do feel like okay, and even look at what happened with him and Microchip. But we'll have to talk about that in the retro show. So
yeah. Here's my thing. This reminds me a lot of Ultimate X-Men #1, where it's just a team. We kind of in Ultimate X-Men we kind of knew it was going to be the original 5 X-Men thrown together, but it was just so rushed in that first issue. That's kind of how I felt. The team was put together way too quickly.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you have no clue. Why is General Ross going to each person?
Yeah, what motivated him to form this team, and why does he feel like there's a cancer on the planet that needs to be cut out?
Right.
I don't know. This could potentially be really great. I don't know, but right now it's very average, below average maybe.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not going to be like, in 10 years, if I took issue one of the Thunderbolts, they're going, oh my gosh, this is $15,000 book. No, they're probably going to be like, oh yeah, hey, put it with the rest of the $1 bin.
Yeah.
But hey, it was a decent read. I got a kick out of it. So would I say, if anyone came to me and they're like, John, I'm a first time reader. I want you to pick out a couple of series for me to read or that you think I would like. This wouldn't be the first book that I went to.
Yeah.
So,
I think the only thing that really saved it for me was Deadpool killing mimes in France.
yes, yes. Just
Uh,
the randomness of Deadpool.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's going to help the book or hurt the book, to be completely honest, because
Okay,
that's
okay.
another one. Like,
In Uncanny X-Force, which was a totally super serious book, right? Deadpool was fantastic, but that's Rick Remender. He was able to write Deadpool really well. Like, there's a
yeah,
scene, Archangel is sick from pestilence, which was one of the four horsemen,
Hmm.
and Deadpool starts cutting off pieces of his skin, his flesh, and starts feeding it to Archangel.
Oh boy,
And it is
that
disgusting,
must have been yummy.
but it is
yeah.
hilarious. Like, I was almost crying in tears because it was that funny. Like, and the stuff he says, I can't remember it now because I read it over a year ago, but I was crying. I remember crying when I was reading it. That's how funny it is. Like, he's got a big knife and he's chopping skin right off his arm and he's putting it in his mouth. He's like, yum 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 yum. Eat my skin. And I was like, oh,
Eat my
like, I
skin.
literally gagged. I gagged. Like, but it was
Yeah.
funny. It was hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really good. So if Dylan and Way can do the same with him and this team, it'll be successful.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
All right, let's move on.
So moving on, I'm gonna pick up on Cable and X-Force #1, written by Dennis Hopeless, art done by Salvador La Roca.
La
La
Rocca.
Rocca, sorry. I gotta mention the colors as well. Frank D'Armata. I really like the colors in this book. Um, so, anyways, the story begins with Cable and his team with Colossus, Domino, and Doctor Nemesis, and they're caught by the Uncanny Avengers. What looks like a mass murder. Um, After a short questioning by Havoc, Cable just simply says, "Can't explain it away," and they attack the Avengers and transport his team away from the Avengers. The rest of the story takes place days earlier. Um, we're at a scene where Hope is talking to. I wasn't sure who she was talking to
It's a counselor at her
at
school.
her school. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's talking to her counselor about basically how stupid and hard it is to be back in normal public school and
And let me touch on this.
yeah.
Hope, after Avengers versus X-Men, AVX,
Mhm.
she wanted to be re-implemented or kind of reacclimated to just like normal
Normal.
teenage society. But I mean, her whole life has been living on being hunted by
Right.
Bishop. I
Right.
mean, Bishop was trying to kill her since day one, since she was born, and Cable was protecting her in the future. They kept jumping in his early when they jumped into the future to protect her, and Bishop went after her. Cable's time traveling device was broken, and he could only jump forward. He couldn't jump backward in time, so they just kept jumping forward and forward and forward, and Bishop kept coming after him.
Right.
And it was pretty traumatic for her, and she's been through, and even when she got back to the present time, her life has been very traumatic. So
Right. So I mean,
uh,
she wants to go back to that normal like, well, not really go back. She never really had it, but she wants to be a part of normal society.
Right,
But
and she's
now that
having a hard time.
she's having a hard time coping with it. Now that she's actually gotten a chance to be a part of it, she's almost taking it for granted and not really happy about it, and probably misses her old ways. Not misses being chased, by Bishop, but just the whole
Well,
super world.
Cable's like her dad.
Right.
It's not. She's not
Right.
her. Cable's not her biological dad, but
Right.
that's the only father she's ever known, and she misses him and misses spending time with him. And Cable's a hard ass. I mean,
Right.
we can go back to New Mutants, late '90s when he
When he
was
first,
first.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he was always really hard on those kids, and he wasn't any different with Hope.
Right.
So
So not only is she just trying to cope, but she's finding new mutants are popping up at her school, and just talking about how she doesn't enjoy her new foster family and just not enjoying life. And
I really like the line she gave about the her parents watch 27 hours of
television a week.
television a week,
Yeah.
mostly sitcoms.
Yeah.
Which I think, I mean that's
It paints,
pretty good. I mean that's pretty good commentary on everyday American life.
American
Right.
middle income life. Yeah.
Yep. So all this while, Cable's just outside the building listening on a long range listening device, whatever you call that. So then we are at Cable's hideout, or his base, where he meets up with Forge, who's been working on a new arm for Cable. They talk about how he lost privileges to see Hope after attacking the Avengers, and how Forge is tired of hiding out, waiting for a game plan. And shortly after they test out his new upgrades, and Cable starts getting these like really intense headache, and shortly after that he kind of just dismisses it and heads out to visit Dr. Nemesis. So then we cut to Domino breaking into an AIM facility, only to find that Hope has beaten her to the punch and taken out all the guards and workers. So Hope's like kind of rebelling and like, I'm just gonna go back and look for baddies again and try and be useful and get back to the superhero type ways. So she has the man Domino's therefore as a hostage, and uses him as a trade for the information on where Cable is, because she has no clue where he is. She is not allowed to have contact with him. So then we cut to Cable's destination. He breaks into Dr. Nemesis' lab and is trying to recruit him, and says, I need a weird science super genius brain doctor, his words. And so then we're flashed back to the base, where we find Hope and Domino waiting for Cable, and throws a bit of she throws a temper tantrum on him, and shows a nice display of her leeching powers, where she uses his telekinesis to just lift up all the junk, because they're like in a junkyard where his base is like hidden underneath some junky plane, and all of a sudden all these old parts and stuff are just starting to float around as she's screaming at him. And so they have a little tender moment where after her little tantrum, they hug it out a little bit, and she's just happy to see him. And immediately after, he has another like huge headache, and she goes to touch him, and she's bombarded by a vision that he's having of a cruise ship crashing and hundreds of people screaming and dying, and it's kind of faint what she sees, but that's basically what she's seeing. So later, Cable's being tested by Nemesis while everyone waits for an answer to his headaches, trying to figure out what's going on with him. He thinks the headaches are linked to him losing the techno-organic virus, and he even says like that cure gummed up my works, something fear, or Forge says that. And after finishing the tests, Hope's watching the news and realizes the fever dream or what have you that she saw through Cable is actually airing live on the news. And they kind of leave it like that on a little bit of a cliffhanger. And that was the end of the issue. And I enjoyed it. I really liked this book so far. It was a good first issue. I always, when I was working at the comic book store, was when I seen the issues. of Cable and Hope in the Cable books. And I always, I think I read like an issue or two, and it interested me. We didn't have a lot of the back issues, so I never really pursued reading it because I didn't want to like get sucked in and have to go find all the back issues. And
Right.
but I was always really drawn into that dynamic of Cable having this child that he's protecting and on the run with. It was a really cool story. And I'm looking forward to eventually getting those issues and really catching up on all that. But I like Hope as a character. She's, I don't know, for me, a nice breath of fresh air, kind of. But she's just new to me. She's been in the universe for a while now.
Well, I mean, she had her own team for a little while, and the book flopped.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it didn't do very well, and it was what was it called, John? It was
A Generation Hope.
yeah, Generation Hope, and it just didn't. It just, and some of the characters were really good. I just don't know. I don't know why.
Have we actually explained Hope? Like, what's the whole big deal of Hope?
Yeah, we kind of brought it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think I was talking about how she was kind of like the Messiah.
The Messiah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But where did she come from exactly?
That is a little bit unexplained. She just kind of, there was like an explosion of fire and damage in Alaska, and the X-Men went there and found Hope, and a lot of people thought she was Jean reborn.
Right.
That's what I thought originally. Yeah.
And it turns out she's not. So I have no idea what they're doing with her, but she's a cool character. She did reignite the mutant genome or whatever, and new mutants are being born now. And she's a good character. She's really mature for her age. She's a little bit. She kind of reminds me of Kitty Pryde when she was kind of a teenager and X-Men. Really, really angry, bossy. But this comic was pretty good. I liked it a lot. I like that we're seeing, for the first time, X-Men books where we're seeing a clear divide between Xavier's ideology and Magneto's ideology.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, before, it was Magneto's ideology was always the opposition to all the X-Men books. Now we're getting books with his ideology.
Yeah, saying, maybe this wasn't such a bad idea. Maybe this is the way to go.
Right.
And now we're going to have there was always this discussion in the 90s that Xavier was the Martin Luther King, peaceful hippie side to mutants, and Magneto was the Malcolm X. And it was always, we were always seeing things from the perspective of the Martin Luther King way, the Professor X way. Now we're starting to see books from the Magneto perspective. Half the books are split from the Magneto perspective, and half are from the Professor X perspective. And that is what is intriguing to me. That is what's fun. That's what is exciting about the X books right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what a lot of people are missing.
It's just a nice change. I mean, you can only do the same thing over and over again for so. It's not that they've done it over and over again, but in a sense they have for many years. I mean, it was always that one ideal, and it's a nice change. I mean, you gotta change it up to keep people interested in these books. Number one.
Oh, exactly.
And it's gonna change again eventually. And
for the long time, I mean, I remember, and a lot of people hate Secret Wars, right? Secret Wars, the 80s crossover, which was this godlike entity taking all the heroes and all the villains on Earth and pitting them against each other. And Magneto was lumped with the heroes, and nobody could understand why. Like, none of the heroes, and to me it was clearly obvious, and to my friend Wes and to a lot of people, Magneto is a hero. Magneto is someone who fights for people who have been hunted down like animals and annihilated and mistreated and killed and persecuted. And it's finally nice to see books starting to be written in that perspective, in my opinion.
Man.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's what Cyclops is talking about. The hippie ideology doesn't work sometimes. Sometimes force has to work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, but it's cool to read and cool to watch.
Definitely. Yeah, this is a definite buy for me. I downloaded the first issue, and I'm definitely putting it on my pull from here on out.
What was your favorite part of the book?
My favorite part of the book was the confrontation between Havoc and Cable.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of of the Hope and Cable scene where she's
Yeah.
kind of throwing a tantrum and whatnot, and everyone's like, "Oh crap!"
And that was.
I'd have to say that was probably my favorite part, even though I haven't followed them for a long time, but knowing the history a little bit, I liked that scene of them kind of reuniting again. That was pretty nice.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
Tommy, would you like to move forward?
So I've been tasked with the job of reviewing Superior Spider-Man #1, which is part of the Marvel One brand. Amazing Spider-Man has been around since the 60s, and we'll be reviewing it in our retro reviews. It went 700 issues, and then Marvel decided to kill off Peter Parker. Basically, recently Otto Octavius, known as the villain, we all know as Dr. Octopus, he was dying of cancer. And in order to cheat death, he used his skills as a mad scientist to swap minds with with his greatest enemy, which is Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man. The transfer gave Otto Octavius more than just Spider-Man's great powers and his body. It gave him Parker's experiences as well, including the lesson of great responsibility, where Peter Parker's Uncle Ben died in his arms because he didn't stop a burglar who robbed this
It's not my problem.
wrestling entrepreneur. He basically robbed Vince McMahon before Vince McMahon was Vince McMahon. And he became a great hero because of this tragedy. So Octavius experienced this when he took over Peter's body and mind, and it made him want to be a great hero like Peter Parker, which I know it sounds a little ridiculous. It's a little soap opera like. It's a little ridiculous to say the least, but it's really funny. It's fun, and it's a dark comedy. A lot of people hate this book.
Oh, they shouldn't, man. It's awesome.
It is pretty awesome, but I can see what. Can you understand, Joe? Like, if you have been reading Spider-Man for 30 years and this happened.
Oh yeah, of course, but yeah, I don't want to say too much. I've read a little further ahead. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, I mean, they need to quit their crying.
Look, I went to the comic book store in San Francisco where I live. I go to Comic Outpost, great comic book store. They give a 15% discount, and they're great guys. The guy that owns the place is Gary. His name is Gary. He's a real cool guy. But I walked in there, and we started talking about Marvel now and Spider-Man, and he was just like, I don't know why people are buying this. He was just like, I hate it. I wouldn't be surprised if people tried to return the comic to me and ask for a refund, like all this stuff. Well, I did that actually. I bought X-Men Legacy, which is supposed to be about Charles Xavier's son. What's his name, John?
Oh, Legion.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So the X-Men Legacy got converted from an all kind of book that was focused on Rogue to Charles Xavier's son, Legion. And I read the first 3 issues, and it literally gave me a headache. Like, I didn't enjoy it at all. So I went back to the comic book store and I asked for my money back, and I was like, "Can I trade this in for the comics any comics on my pull list? I can't read this. It's literally making my head hurt." And he did it for me.
No shit.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and I recommend anyone who lives in San Francisco go to Comic Outpost. It's a good comic book store. But
Comic Outpost.
Yeah, but
and if you live in the southeast region of Michigan, please check out Big Ben's Comics Oasis.
Big Ben's Comics Oasis, which is actually a really good spot.
Yeah, honestly,
It is, yeah.
Big Ben's Comics is a great place.
Definitely.
And they also, too, will return if you read a really crappy comic or series. They're pretty good about giving you your money back. So.
If you're a good customer, yeah.
Ask Tommy once again. He had Grant Morrison's comic book series Filth, and also gained a headache from that one.
Well, I didn't just gain a headache from Filth. I was disgusted.
Maybe that's why it's called Filth. Maybe you should have read into that title a little better.
Well, I'm okay.
I never read it. I don't even know.
No, it was really that it was unreadable, and that's why I returned it. But and Grant Morrison's a good writer, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, he's a great writer, but that comic book was a little too far out. But.
Well, that's it for episode 2. We hope you enjoyed the show, and please stay tuned for episode 3, where we'll be discussing Superior Spider-Man, Daredevil, Thor, Iron Man, and Hawkeye. Thanks again. See you next time.
Hey,